Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome for this webinar by Normic Verifavia and ESG, also with our independent expert, Marike, dedicated to EU supply chain and how to comply with upcoming regulations for exporters. We are very happy to welcome you today. For the next hour and a half, we'll do our best to demystify the requirements of upcoming EU regulation and give you information on how to comply in an efficient way, how to be aware of all requirements when it comes to fulfilling requirements of your customers in the EU. We are expecting around 100 people for this webinar from all over the world, with focus on Vietnam, which I will explain briefly why. Normic is part of an association in Vietnam, and we organized an event in July, and we had the pleasure of meeting with Alex and also with Marike, and we shared common values about helping our clients to understand their requirements and providing efficient solutions, being very proactive, and the fit was very natural. So we decided to organize this webinar in order to spread the word and spread awareness about ESG, so environmental, social, and governance regulations, and associated regulations focusing on environment and in particular emissions. My name is Nicolas Duchesne. I'm President and CEO of Normic Verifavia. We are doing independent verification and validation for environment and sustainability for 15 years now. Our presenters today will be Alex Nguyen. Alex is founder and senior consultant at ESG Education and Business, very active in Vietnam when it comes to helping Vietnamese industries and agriculture sector to meet the requirements of EU regulation and also US. We also will hear Marike van der Pilch, who is a EU law specialist when it comes to EU market access and compliance. And I will give also an overview of requirements focusing on CBAM, carbon-based adjustment mechanism. Looking into the agenda in a bit more details, Alex will be taking us through ESG and compliance, so with an introduction of what is ESG, why it is important for trades and in particular for exports, and what are the key compliance requirements. In the second session, Marike will tell us more about EU specificities, what are the existing regulations that must be complied with. There will be a focus on sustainability, and what are the associated needs, and she will give us some practical steps on how to comply. I will do a presentation of the requirements of CBAM, focusing on the impact of carbon emissions in the supply chain. We will give you an opportunity to ask questions. The chat is open and you should be able to ask any questions that you have, and we will dedicate ample time at the end of this webinar to pick the relevant questions and address them directly. So don't hesitate to use the chat. I can also inform you that we will be sharing the presentations after the webinar. We'll circulate the support, but will not share the recordings currently. You are welcome to contact us for any question or any comment that you may have. I will now hand over to you, Alex, for the ESG and environmental compliance awareness session. Again, it's a great pleasure to be with all of you today, and I hope that you will learn some new information and insights in the coming hour and a half. Alex, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nicolas. Now I will take control. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nguyễn Quyền in Vietnamese name, but you can also call me Alex. I am the founder and ESG LCA EBD Carbon Neutrality and Net Zero Consultant as the ESG education business. Our company had more than 15 years of experience in education, consulting, trade, investment, and R&D in the sustainable development technology. We serve more than 100 corps in Vietnam already, and we are very happy to be the strategic partner with the Nomec Verifavia from Mr. Nicolas as the CEO in Vietnam for the sustainable audited verified certification in Vietnam. Today, I'm honored to share with you the topic ESG and environmental compliance awareness, a subject that becoming increasing important for Vietnamese enterprise in the context of a global integration. I'm happy to see a few of the Vietnamese attendants today, and I hope that they will have a lot of information from my presentation. As you know, ESG is built upon the three pillars: environment, E, social, S, and governance, G. Environment related to emission, climate, and natural resource. Social focus on the people, labor, and the community. Government emphasize the transparency, anti-corruption, and risk management system. I don't want to go in deep with each sector, but I want to focus on each industry sector today. So at the recent customer, investor, and international market on demand ESG transparency, more importantly, international trade agreement and the carbon border adjustment mechanisms such as the EU CBAM, like Nicolas will present later, are turning ESG into the compliant requirement, not just a trend. Global regulatory frameworks such as the EU Green Deal, CSRD, EUDR, ETS, and CBAM are already having direct impact on the Vietnamese exporter. Meanwhile, on the domestic level, Vietnam law on the Environmental Direction 2020 agreed that on the greenhouse gas emission and the government net zero 2050 roadmap are creating additional compliance pressure. And now let us take a closer look at the Vietnam export industry to better understand the role of ESG and the challenge they will face in the near future. So like you see in this section, let's take a closer look at the key export industry of Vietnam that are most exposed to the risk under new environmental and the trade policy. The first one is electronic. Like you see, electronic account for the 38% of the Vietnam total export, and about the 27% of that go to US. Targeted products include smartphone, laptop, electronics circuit, processor, and the data storage device. Key company and brand affected are Intel, HP, Dell, Amcor, Samsung, Victory Giant, and the Saigon Fabrication. This means any regulatory and or environmental change in the US market will have an immediate and a significant impact on Vietnam export performance. The second sector about the machinery. Machinery represents around 9% of Vietnam export, with 30% of that bound for the US. Targeted products include building tools, solar panel, and a machine controller. Company and brand involved include Rockwell Automation, Tektronix, First Solar, Trina Solar, and GA Solar. They are the high-tech products that we face stricter requirements on emission and sustainable supply chains. The third sector is very important for Vietnam, about the furniture. Furniture make up around about 3% of export, but 73% of this volume is shipped to the US. Targeted products include wooden and metal furniture such as chair, desk, counter, and bed frame. Affected companies include Phú Tài, Savimex, Sukavina, and the T&L metal furniture. This industry is highly dependent on the US market, but it particularly vulnerable if sustainability standards are not met. To sum up, the industry, electronic, machinery, and the furniture receive the most at-risk sector for Vietnam. They must adopt ESG practice and comply with the environment regulation weekly to mitigate risk and maintain export competitiveness. So we go to the next. We move on the two more critical export industry from Vietnam that are heavily linked to the U.S. market: textile and the footwear. Not only U.S. market but also EU markets. About textile, represent around 8% of the Vietnam total export, with around half of this volume going to US. Key products include sweater, jeans, shirt, jacket, bag, and a backpack. Major company and brand affected is Bristol Group, Vinatech, Maison Hong, and Dệt May Thành Công. Given the heavy reliance on the US market and EU market also, any change in the sustainability and the trade regulation could have a significant impact on this sector. The fifth sector is about footwear. Footwear contribute around 6% of Vietnam overall export, and the US account for 35% of the shipment. Major combined company arrange include Buchen, Vinashu, TBS Group, BT, and Thượng Đỉnh. Like similar to the textile, this industry exposed to the US market regulation make it highly sensitive to change in ESG and environmental compliance requirement. So both textile and footwear are the labor-intensive industry and provide million jobs in Vietnam. That's why strengthening ESG practice and compliance is not only about protecting export revenue, but also about the safeguarding employment and social stability. So we go to the next slide about the strategic option for Vietnamese enterprise. So facing the tariff pressure and stricter compliance requirement, Vietnamese company need to explore practical strategy to adapt and sustain competitive. This slide highlights three main options. The fourth option is diversify export destination. Vietnam must accelerate its market diversification strategy to reduce reliance on the US market. So EU market is one good choice solution. Business should take advantage of the existing free trade agreement like FTA, such as EV FTA between Vietnam and European, CPTPP and RCEP, to expand into European, Asia Pacific, and other emerging markets. Diversification helps spread the risk and avoid the over dependence on one single market like US. The second is downside operation. Many Vietnamese manufacturers are already considering downsizing or close as the short-term adjustment. Instead of the full shutdown, some companies have shifted to rotating work schedule, such as Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. This allows firms to control the fixed cost, keep operation running, and retain their workforce during the uncertain time. The third solution is divest or withdraw. Certainly, the impact of tariff may be too strictly, and depending on the industry and the company level of reliance on the US, some firms may need to exit non-core or uncompetitive business segment and redirect resources to more profitable and sustainable area. While difficult, this option can help the company refocus on the market and product with higher growth potential. So in summary, there is no one size fits all solution. Company must carefully assess to tariff and compliance challenge, and then choose the most appropriate strategy. Whether it's diversifying market, downsizing for the resilient, or restructure for their business model. So we go to the next slide, the market diversification. Now we talk about the strategy. Let's look at the actual breakdown of the Vietnam export market and see where the diversification opportunity lies. Vietnam export market breakdown from the 2020 to the 2023. The US remained the largest export destination, accounting to the 28% to the Vietnam export. China followed with the 16%, while EU account for the 12%. South Korea received 7%, Japan 6%, and the rest of the world make up substantial 31%. So what this shows us is that while US is dominant over 70% of the Vietnam export are already diversified beyond US, the European, South Korea, and Japan represent stable high-value market that can absorb more Vietnamese export, especially under free trade agreement like EVFTA, CPTPP, and RCEP. The other category, which is nearly one-third of total, show that there is significant untapped potential in emerging markets across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. The key takeaway here is that diversification is not just a theory, it's necessary. By proactively targeting markets like the EU, Japan, and emerging economy, Vietnamese enterprise can reduce their over-reliance on the US and build more resilient export portfolio. So we on this slide we saw that Vietnam exports are still heavily concentrated in the US market, with there also opportunity in China, in the EU, European, Korea, Japan, and other regions. However, entering the market is not simply about the shifting container from one port to another. Each new market comes with its own set of challenge, from finding the right distribution partner, meeting with the strict technical standard, to align with the ESG compliance requirement. That brings us to the next important question: how can Vietnamese enterprise actually win in this diversification strategy? Let's take a look closer at the key challenge. So here is the slide we talk about how to win. Firstly, we talk about the partner and distribution network. One of the biggest barriers is that the contract or limited risk manufacturer often have the little control over sales, distribution, and market strategy. Without a strong local network, understanding of the business practice, language, and regulatory system, expanding to the new market become a significant challenge. In short, without the right partnership, it is very difficult to access and succeed in the target market. And the second, we need to building a viable supply chain. The second challenge is a technical standard. Mismatch compliance with the regulation in this sector, like electronic, automated, park, food, and textile, can be the complex and the resource intensive. To benefit from the free trade agreement, Vietnamese goods must comply with the rule of the origin, CO or the ROO, meaning certain percentage of the value must be added in Vietnam. For example, in US, they said that to identify as the make in Vietnam, the domestic percentage of the value must be from the 35 to the 40% of the total value. So for the industry, that really heavily on the imported raw material, providing origin can be extremely complex, requiring detailed documentation and supply chain transparency. So finally, we talk about the ESG compliance. ESG compliance is become a critical factor. In the EU, European new entrants face strict requirements on environment, so disclosure, traceability, and ethical sourcing. In Japan and Korea, ESG may not be mandatory yet, but it is becoming commercial necessary, and eventually for the exporter working with the large brand or regulated industry. In China, ESG reporting is still fragmented, but momentum is growing rapidly. This means Vietnamese companies must begin treating ESG compliance as the competitive advantage if they want to succeed in the new market. This message here is very clear. Market diversification is not about finding a new buyer. It's about building a right partnership, ensuring supply chain compliance, and embracing ESG as the standard practice. So we go to the next slide, because in this slide we look all at the challenge Vietnamese enterprise face when diversifying market, from the distribution network, technical compliance to ESG requirement. So we go to the solution. We go to Here, we go to the solution of the market, how to make market asset, how to restructure the supply chain, and develop sustainability. We have the three pillars here I want to emphasize. First, about market asset. Company needs to identify the right market, product fit, and strategic partner. This means not only distributor and customer, but also forming a local alliance through joint venture or licensing, hand on the supporting in the B2B matching, partner evaluation, and execution of go to the market strategy will be essential. The second about the supply chain restructuring. To succeed abroad, Vietnam firm must optimize logistics and sourcing abroad border. They need to fully utilize FTA, ensure compliance with the rule of the origin, and meet product certification standard. At the same time, deploying digital tools to improve transparency, traceability, and document will add long-term competitiveness. And finally, sustainability development. This is increasingly non-negotiation negotiable. Companies must prepare for the sustainability certification, embed green practice into their operation, and align with ESG metrics demanded by global investors. Access to the green finance can help scale projects, while ESG training and education will equip both executive and operational teams to integrate sustainability into the daily business decision. So the three area market access, supply chain restructuring, and sustainability form a radical roadmap for Vietnamese enterprise to turn challenge into the opportunity. We go to the next slide about the how we ESG driven trade landscape. Today, global trade is no longer driven purely by cost or quality. Increasingly, it's shaped by ESG. Larger buyers, whether in the US, EU, or Asia, now expect the supplier to demonstrate sustainability practice even when ESG is not legally mandated. Let's take a look closer how different regions are shaping this trend. In China, ESG are being gradually integrated into the national strategy. This includes commitment to the carbon neutrality by 2060, expansion of the green finance, and mandatory ESG disclosure for the listed company. In European Union, the bar is set much higher. The EU is the global ESG benchmark sector, with initiatives such as the Green Deal, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive (CSRD), the New Diligence Directive, and of course the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism (CBAM). Today, these treated strict reporting and compliance requirements for exporters. In South Korea, we see strong momentum driven by the sustainable public procurement and green innovation incentive. ESG disclosure will be mandatory for the KOSPI listed firm starting from the 2025, supported by instruments like the K taxonomy and the Korean eco level. In Japan, ESG is already mainstream into the corporate government. Companies face mandatory disclosure based on the TCFD and ISSB standard, while environmental labeling, life cycle emissions data, and eco-mark certification are now expected by both private buyer and public entity. So the message is very clear. ESG is no longer optional. It is becoming a baseline requirement to participate in the global value chain and supply chains. Next, we will go to in detail about which country, each country will how ESG rated certification and compliance requirement differ across the major export markets like China, EU, Korea, and Japan. So we start with the China. Electronic must comply with the RoHS in China, CCC certificate, and the National Energy Label and CVC certificate. In China, they also issue the carbon border. They call CCER, China Carbon Emission Reporting. similar with the CBAM. So in the future, now they don't require Vietnamese export product need to make the report like CBAM, but I strongly believe in the future, all the product from Vietnam export to China, they must comply with CCR. With the European Union.
Alex, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I would like to ask you to speed up a little bit so that we have time to go through all of the sessions.
Yeah.
There are a few slides left also on you, so if you could just make sure in 5 minutes to finish up and we leave the floor to Marike. Thank you, and sorry for interruption.
Okay, so I will go to just only focus on European Union. The framework is more stronger with the eco label, eco design, with the eco tax, eco label, and risk compliance with the a lot of rules like CBAM. Later you can explain. And for the so we just only have some slide about my company, so we will be okay. So for example, my company at the moment, we like I said, we work 15 years already with the 5 sectors. The first sector about education and training, the second about the consulting for the green certificate, and the third, and we also doing in the business operation, we invest in agricultural sector and energy sector and ETS and carbon trading in Vietnam. We also have some other team for the investment and the green finance consulting for the company who would like to make the Bang Loan for the green Bang Loan in Vietnam. And I hope that in the future more Vietnamese company can have the green loan in Vietnam. We also have the team for the R&D for the decarbon to develop the decarbonization technology. And here is some of the certificate. We work together with the NOCMEC very Favia for the green emission audited for GST protocol, for the aviation, for the maritime reporting, for the sustainability certificate, and we also develop together with the other like ESG score, ESG rating with the series based on the ESMA standard. And we also developed together with the EBD international for the EBD certificate in Vietnam. And we success some of the project in EBD in the cement factory. So that's all for my presentation. And I hope that all of you have some good information about Vietnam market exportation and what we should do in the next period. Thank you, Nicolas. Now, your turn, Nicolas.